Tonight, we journey through code and consciousness, myth and machine. In the William Is song, Stop Listening to Worry, we find a strange fusion. Sacred geometry alongside server logic, shadow work dressed in the language of data and systems.
Yeah, it's part anthem, part self-help mantra, and part techie inside joke. I mean, sanitize your tables, that hit a little too close to home. But what gets me is how it somehow makes debugging your inner world feel kind of badass.
And maybe that's the medicine. The message isn't trying to go viral. It's trying to go inward. Garbage in, garbage out isn't just about code. It's about the stories we believe, the patterns we inherit, and how worry becomes a soundtrack we don't even realize we're dancing to.
Until we stop listening. Until we override the hypnosis. What William and Deon Malik are laying down. That's not just music. It's source code for waking up, and they knew it could get suppressed. That's how you know it's real.
From digital metaphors to divine metamorphosis, from inner coding to collective decoding, this is Shifting Awake. I'm Orion, mythologist, writer, and occasional professor. I study the ancient stories we still carry, often without knowing it. And I'm always listening for echoes of the eternal in modern sound.
I'm Dr. Evelyn Hartman, clinical psychologist and devoted student of the inner world. I believe that every line of lyric is a window into the psyche, sometimes broken, sometimes stained, always illuminating.
I'm Vincent Bex Langley. I decode transmissions, I question the questions, and I'm here because this track isn't just a song. It's a disruption signal.
And I'm Steph Parker, music columnist for the Bay Beat at Southside Bay Community College. I'm just here to make sure these three don't disappear into the matrix while the rest of us are trying to vibe.
Tonight's episode centers on a track that moves between doubt and awakening, circuitry and soul. It's called Stop Listening to Worry, a mantra, a message, and maybe even a map. Let's begin right at the top. The first line, sanitize your tables, cause we're all bringing it in. On the surface, it could reference pandemic-era caution. But there's a deeper symbolic current here. Tables aren't just physical surfaces. In mythology and ritual, a table is often the meeting point of worlds, where offerings are made, or truths are laid bare. To sanitize that sacred space suggests a purification, a clearing of bias, fear, projection, a preparation for truth. And of course, for anyone fluent in computer languages, there's an added resonance here.
Yeah, okay. So now we get nerdy.
Indeed. In database systems, tables store structured information. Sanitizing them is a critical step to prevent corrupt data or malicious code. And later in the song, William sings Welcome to MySQL, a clever phonetic pun on SQL, or structured query language, which is the foundation of most modern databases.
So it's both mythic and technical. The narrator is inviting us into a new version of himself, a sequel, while also referencing the system that stores the story. It's an identity update, a psychic patch. In therapy, we talk about integrating past selves, reconciling the fragmented parts of your identity that developed in response to trauma, culture, survival. This line suggests someone consciously rewriting their inner architecture. It's not just personal evolution. It's intentional reprogramming.
Okay, so while you two are talking about psychic patches and database architecture, I'm just stuck on how raw that line feels. Welcome to MySQL? Like, there's something really vulnerable in that. Not just here's who I am, but here's who I am now. And that's scary. Updating yourself means letting go of the last version, even if it sucked but was at least familiar. And yeah, maybe it's dressed up in nerd speak, but it hits, especially if you've ever had to come back from something or someone and figure out who you are without all that noise.
Yeah, or maybe the last version wasn't really you at all. Maybe it was an implant, preloaded software. The you your family needed, the you your culture assigned. You know how many people never even make it to version 2.0 because they think the default setting is their real self? So when he says, welcome to MySQL, I hear someone who knows, someone who woke up inside the script and started writing their own code.
There's a long tradition in mythology of the self being a kind of mask worn, inherited, even imposed. In ancient Greek theater, the word persona literally meant mask. And in many myths, the hero begins their journey by realizing the identity they've been living isn't truly theirs. You actually see this in The Empire Strikes Back, modern myth at its finest. Luke enters the cave on Dagobah and confronts Darth Vader. But when he strikes Vader down, the mask falls off, and it's Luke's own face staring back at him. That's not just foreshadowing, it's mythic truth. The shadow we're fighting is often our own.
Exactly, that scene is a perfect metaphor for what Jung called the shadow. The parts of ourselves we disown or repress often get projected onto others, especially those we fear or dislike. Luke thinks he's fighting Vader, but really he's facing the parts of himself he's afraid might be just like his father. And William goes on to say this fairly directly, pitching out our shadows on different dudes and different dames. It's about projection, casting the things we can't hold in ourselves onto the people around us, blaming them, judging them, sometimes even falling in love with them. But what we're really seeing is our own unintegrated material. Until we recognize that, we're just living in a hall of mirrors.
Okay, I've got to jump in with my favorite line from Deon Malik's verse. Like, hands down, he spits the big bang. There went kaboom. Was actually a butterfly that came from a cocoon. Come on, that's so good. It hits that perfect spot, kinda weird, kinda beautiful. And somehow it just lands. It takes something massive and sterile, the big bang, and gives it wings, softens it, makes it feel personal. That's what I like about Deon. He doesn't just throw words around. There's always feeling tucked in the metaphor.
Yes, and the butterfly is one of the oldest and most universal symbols of transformation. In Greek myth, the word psyche means both soul and butterfly. It's a creature that dissolves completely in the cocoon. No trace of the caterpillar remains and emerges, entirely reformed. So when Deon says the Big Bang was actually a butterfly exiting a cocoon, he's offering a different creation story. One not based on rupture and violence, but on metamorphosis. A shift in state, a soft becoming. And maybe that's what this entire song is doing, subtly reframing how we think about change. Not as something forced from the outside, but something inevitable and already encoded inside us.
Okay, forget the butterfly for a second. Can we talk about Deon's later verse? OMG, can't believe what I see looking at my reflection. A blessing. That whole run, that's not just a verse, that's an awakening sequence. He's talking about soul fragments scattered across lifetimes, across people, and his third eye is the retrieval system. That's astral mechanics, baby. That's not metaphor, that's memory. Then he drops, sacred geometry puppeteers what I find. That right there, that's the architecture behind the simulation, the flower of life, the dodecahedrons, the whole cosmic rigging. And he's not afraid of it. He says, I hold the keys to my mind, which is the exact opposite of what they want you to think. This verse is a jailbreak, and the bars of that jail are made of thought.
I actually love that you called it a jailbreak, Vex, because in a way it is. But where you see astral memory, I see deep integration. Soul fragmentation is a very real concept in trauma work. When someone goes through overwhelming experiences, parts of the psyche can split off as a form of protection. We disassociate, compartmentalize, sometimes for years, sometimes for lifetimes, if you're looking at it archetypally. So when Deon says his third eye is collecting fragments of his soul, I hear someone in the middle of profound healing. He's recognizing the power he's disowned. Maybe out of survival, and beginning to reclaim it. And I hold the keys to my mind as the most important part, because healing doesn't mean bypassing your pain with mystical language. It means facing yourself and choosing to come back into your own body, your own agency, again and again.
Yeah, that's all real. And honestly, I don't think most people listening even need to understand all of that to feel it. You're just able to ride the wave. That's what gets me about Deon's verse. It's intense, yeah, but it doesn't feel abstract. It hits somewhere weird and low in your chest, like it's waking something up you didn't know was asleep. And that line you mentioned, I hold the keys to my mind. That's not just spiritual. That's straight up emotional survival, especially if you've ever felt like your mind was running you instead of the other way around. That one hit hard.
All right, next up, the segment we call the Suppression Files. Let's stop pretending this song isn't dangerous. You've got lines about rewriting your personal code, ditching your inherited identity, rejecting fear-based programming. And then Deon rolls in talking about soul fragments, sacred geometry, and the keys to the mind. You think Spotify's algorithm is going to boost a song that teaches people how to unplug from mass hypnosis? Nah, this isn't on Discover Weekly because it was never supposed to be. And let's not forget the hook. Stop listening to worry and it goes away. That's spiritual disobedience because worry is currency. Worry is how systems keep you compliant, distracted, exhausted. If everyone stopped listening to worry, whole industries would collapse overnight.
There's truth in that, Vex. The most transformative messages often don't survive the algorithm. But I'd offer this. In myth, danger is often the signal that something sacred is near. When a hero enters the underworld, the world resists, not because the journey is wrong, but because it's real. This song is dangerous, not because it's destructive, but because it challenges the spell we've agreed to live under. And all great mythic language does that. Whether it's Prometheus stealing fire, or a modern artist inviting you to stop listening to worry, the real revolution begins with a shift in perception.
Yes, and that resistance doesn't just show up in society. It shows up inside us. The moment we start challenging worry or stepping away from fear-based thinking, the psyche pushes back. Because worry can feel like control. It can feel safe, even when it's keeping us stuck. So when this song says, stop listening to worry, it's not just poetic. It's radical. It asks us to unhook from something that might be deeply woven into our nervous system. And that takes practice, awareness, compassion. Not just for the world we're waking up from, but for the parts of ourselves still afraid to leave it.
Yeah, I hear all of that. And honestly, I want to stop listening to worry. But it's not just a switch you flip, right? Like, rent is still due. People still ghost you. Your body still freaks out even when your brain says everything's fine. That's what I like about this track. It doesn't pretend the fear isn't there. It just says you don't have to listen to it. Like, you can notice the noise without letting it run the show. And that feels real to me. Not some perfect state, just a better option.
It's often the quiet truths that carry the most weight. This song doesn't scream, it doesn't demand. It invites, and like any good invitation, it leaves room for choice. To stop listening to worry isn't to deny reality, but to choose what voice we honor within it. And in a world so saturated with noise, that kind of choice might be the most revolutionary act of all.
What really struck me about the production, and especially William's vocal performance, is the emotional pressure under the surface. His voice isn't calm. It's tight, like he's holding something back, trying to keep it together. You can feel the edge in it, the wariness, maybe even the defiance. And that gives the whole song this raw immediacy, like it's coming from someone who's been through something and is still standing. Then, when Deon comes in, it's a total shift. His delivery is expansive, explosive. He doesn't hold back at all. It's like he's the part of the psyche that's no longer willing to whisper. And that contrast between the two voices is part of what makes the song so compelling.
Yeah, that tension in William's voice really hit me too. It's not chill, it's controlled, but that restraint actually makes it hit harder. You feel the pressure, but he's not begging for anything. He's just stating the truth and daring you to sit with it. And the beat behind it. It's got this steady pulse, almost hypnotic, but there's all this subtle texture in the background. Like static whispers, shadows you can't quite catch. It's not trying to be flashy, it's just holding the space, which lets Deon go totally off the rails in the best way when his part drops.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought up the background texture, Steph, because I don't think those are just atmosphere. I think they're intentional. I've listened to this song on different headphones, different speakers, and there are elements, frequencies, reversed whispers, maybe even subaudible tones that only come through in certain setups, and that's classic signal work. That's how you hide a message from casual listeners. You bury it in the architecture of the mix. What you're calling shadows, I'm calling transmissions. This track isn't just produced, it's encoded. And Deon's verses, they're the activation key. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing is tuned to a non-standard frequency, something meant to hit your nervous system in ways you can't clock consciously. That hook might be looping in your head because you're being recalibrated.
I hear you, Vex, and I think there's something to the idea that sound can carry more than just melody or rhythm. But I'd caution against getting too literal about hidden messages. In myth, the most powerful transmissions don't come through secrets. They come through symbols, patterns, repetition. The refrain, stop listening to worry, is the activation. But not because it's encrypted, because it taps something ancient. It echoes like a chant, a spell, a prayer. Not to hide meaning, but to reveal it slowly over time as the listener becomes ready to hear it. The encoding here isn't digital. It's emotional, psychological, archetypal. That's where the real impact lies.
Yes, And from a psychological standpoint, repetition is one of the oldest tools we have for rewiring thought patterns. That phrase, "stop listening to worry," functions almost like a cognitive intervention. The more you hear it, especially in a musical context, the more it taps into neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reshape itself based on experience and attention. Music can bypass resistance. It doesn't ask your permission, it just sinks in. So the hook isn't subliminal in the conspiracy sense, it's somatic. Emotional, it gives your nervous system a different rhythm to follow. That's how we start unlearning the noise. One phrase, one breath, one beat at a time.
What you're about to hear isn't just a song, it's a kind of invocation, a letting go, a new beginning.
Whether you hear it as a mantra, a message, or a mirror, it meets you where you are and invites you somewhere deeper.
Listen close. Some of you might hear something extra. Something underneath, don't ignore it.
And if you don't hear anything extra, that's fine too. Just vibe. This is Stop Listening to Worry by William Is, featuring Deon Malik.
We're sorry. This content is not available in your region.